Ole Miss will absolutely blast Tulane this week. We have the answer key before Saturday's test.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we will tell you why Ole Miss is poised to get past the Tulane Green Wave and how it is likely to happen, with some standout individual performances to watch. Next, we'll dive into Lane Kiffin's vision of shaping this team into a power running offense with play action. It's not that far-fetched. We'll tell you what we mean. And this game is a crucial step before the toughest part of the schedule arrives. But first, we'll break down the top reasons why Ole Miss should dominate Tulane whenever they come to Oxford. Remember, we're free and available in all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every single detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later in the show for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move and Be Moved. This is an interesting game. And before I do all of this, just so Tulane fans that come in, I do this for everybody. It doesn't matter who Ole Miss is playing. I give you the reasons why Ole Miss will win the game. So this isn't a shot at you. I fully expect Ole Miss to win the game, but I fully also expect Tulane to go 11-1 and be the G5 recipient in the playoff. Tulane has a very, very good football program. But there's a couple of things that are on my mind in this game and the reasons why I think Ole Miss is going to win. If Ole Miss plays clean and does what they're supposed to do, it actually didn't make the list this week. I know that's a shocker. But if Ole Miss can play clean against Tulane and not give them short fields, all of a sudden Ole Miss has a much better team than the Tulane Green Wave. Now, there's a lot of former SEC players on Tulane's roster, Shaz Preston being one of them, a transfer from Alabama. Jake Reztlaff is a really good player. He is kind of a B- version of Taylor Green. He can run around quite a bit. And there's a lot of things that Ole Miss needs to do in this game to be successful. This is a good warm-up test for the meat of Ole Miss's schedule that is coming up. Ole Miss just needs to figure out a way to get past this game because this is a classic trap game. Ole Miss just came off of Arkansas. They have LSU, who likely could be number 1, 2, or 3 in the country after next week's rankings. Game day potentially shows up. I mean, Oregon and Penn State's that weekend. But if Ole Miss is a top 10 team and LSU is a top 5 team, there's every reason to expect that ESPN would want to do that, especially with a documentary about Lane Kiffin coming out next week. And especially with the fact that ABC owns all the SEC rights to begin with. So a top 10 matchup would be worth paying attention to. All of that trap stuff is on the table. But I think Ole Miss actually has a very good matchup with the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane this season has been extremely leaky on run defense. They're a well-coached team. They tackled well. Sometimes, like against South Alabama, they didn't even give up explosives. Like the longest run was 15 yards. But they gave up 5 yards a carry, including a 100-yard rusher to our old friend, Kentrell Bullock, who got going a little bit for the South Alabama Jaguars. That leaky run defense kind of gives me a little bit of, hope for the matchup. So expect a big day for Kewan Lacey. Expect a big day for Trinidad Chambliss as they exploit the run defense problem that has been a little bit leaky for the Tulane Green Wave. Second of all, this is going to have to be the game that the defensive line starts to look like the defensive line that we were told about in the preseason. I think it's possible. Against Arkansas, Ole Miss dropped Suntarine Perkins and got him off the line of scrimmage quite a bit. That was a mistake to me. I think Suntarine Perkins is a better player whenever he's playing behind the line of scrimmage as opposed to covering 15, 20 yards downfield. Now, I understand you have to drop him some, the defense requires that, but using Suntarine Perkins and figuring out a way to get a matchup in the pass protection for the Tulane Green Wave, that's going to be a major thing because you need Suntarine Perkins to threaten Jake Reztlaff. You need Suntarine Perkins to make life a little bit easier for Prince Willem Monmielen or Deshaun Womack or whoever is playing at the end position. I think it will be important for the Ole Miss team to have explosives in this game, either sacks, interceptions, cause fumbles. Ole Miss has only forced 2 turnovers over the course of 3 games this season. I think this defense looks a lot different whenever they get those explosive type plays. And third of all, I think that Ole Miss is going to take care of the ball and force the Green Wave to have to go the long field to score a touchdown. No short fields for the Green Waves, especially with them being a primarily running offense. Now, when you play a running team, and if you're my age, you understand what I'm talking about. Every time you played a wishbone team or somebody that was heavy on the run game, you thought, okay, we need to jump on this team and make them throw the ball. That is a massive key in this game. Ole Miss jumping on Tulane to where Tulane has to throw the ball. Jake Reztlaff threw 12 interceptions last season for BYU. He hasn't thrown the ball very often this season for whatever reason. It might be from the fact that he's only been there about a month, but he hasn't thrown the ball very often. He can. He's a good quarterback, but force Tulane to beat you throwing the football. Listen, against Duke was 75% pass in that game because they fell behind in the first half by 3 scores, and Tulane was able to methodically just push it down the field as well. But even in that game against Duke, if Duke would have stuck with the run game, they averaged nearly 6 yards per carry, including explosives all over the place. But they couldn't do it because the score dictated that they didn't, because the game state dictated that they didn't. So it is going to be important that Ole Miss jumps on Tulane, has a good first quarter. It looks similar to, honestly, what they did against Arkansas. And I think John Sumrall is going to have a great plan in place for Trinidad Chambliss or Austin Simmons. I think John Sumrall has a plan for both of them. He doesn't know who is going to play, but he will absolutely game plan for those that will. I'm telling you, Ole Miss has a really good matchup with Tulane. This is a team that has been leaky on the front line of their defensive front. They tackle extremely well, but they've been leaky. And when you add a Trinidad Chambliss, when you add a Kewan Lacey, when you add the best offensive line that Tulane has seen this season coming up, even though they've been giving up about 30 points a game to South Alabama and even Duke, there's a chance that Kewan Lacey could have a big day. There's a chance that Trinidad Chambliss could go for over 100 yards rushing in this game. This isn't a scramble from the pass situation. This is a designed run type game. It's the reason I talked earlier in the week about exotic personnel groupings and exotic formations and things like that. Running 2 tight ends from time to time with 2 running backs, potentially with Logan Diggs and Kewan Lacey, with a Trinidad Chambliss to stress that defense, force Tulane to kind of play in a phone booth. Their secondary is pretty good. They had 4 interceptions in the first game this season. So you want to get them into a phone booth and then let your athletes kind of fan out. I think that should be the plan for Ole Miss against Tulane. Tulane's a good team, a very good team. I just don't think this is a very good matchup for the Green Wave. They struggle with something that Ole Miss really genuinely wants to do. If Tulane struggled with the pass, there's a little bit of hope because Trinidad Chambliss is not the passer that Austin Simmons is. So you would feel pretty good about that. But this game, forcing Ole Miss to run the football, and your defense has been a little bit leaky, and they played pretty well against the Arkansas Razorbacks. They genuinely played pretty well. We'll see exactly how that looks moving forward. It's going to be interesting, and I think this kind of is a prophecy of what Lane Kiffin wants this offense to be. Because his biggest want for this Ole Miss offense, at least in my opinion, can start to take shape this week against Tulane. And here's the kicker. It's a throwback to Lane Kiffin's USC days. The formations might look different, but what they're trying to accomplish is exactly the same. Think about it. Leaning on balance, marrying the run game with vertical shots, and keeping the defense off balance with tempo and mismatches. That is the identity of Lane Kiffin, and that is what he's trying to recreate in Oxford, either with Trinidad Chambliss or when Austin Simmons comes back. And Saturday could be the first real glimpse of it all coming together. We'll explain exactly what that looks like and why it is such a good sign for this team's ceiling. Coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, they keep moving the game forward. Early in the game against Arkansas, the Hogs wanted to test the young D2 transfer quarterback Trinidad Chambliss and sent the house after him. But he was able to calmly, collectively check down to Caden Lee for a long pass rush against the blitz, keeping his eyes downfield that kind of set up the TV. It kind of moved that game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. You know, the weather is cooling down and the days are getting shorter, and that has me kind of wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood this season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, and even espresso machines, so you can make your own favorite latte at home. You know, I recently picked up a recliner from Wayfair for my surgery recorder, and OMG, it has become completely indispensable, and it's completely transformed my space. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding to autumn decor, you'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every home, every style. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast in whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to this in, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing but keeps all of this free. But if you want more, join the Insiders program at the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel, so give that a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, is ready for you. Listen, I'm kind of excited, just low-key excited about where this offense can go. And this isn't a Trinidad Chambliss thing or an Austin Simmons thing. I expect when Austin Simmons is healthy, he's going to be the guy. It's one of those things, you need both. You have weapons. You have the ability to make the defensive coordinator for the other team prepare multiple ways every single game. You do that. I mean, that just makes sense. So, but this is about what the offense will look like. And I noticed this, honestly, on the play after Austin Simmons re-injured his ankle against Arkansas when he threw the touchdown pass. And how much that play, particularly, looked like the old Matt Leinart USC stuff. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the Heisman or anything like that. I'm talking stylistically of what they want this to look like. Lane Kiffin, at his core, he's a running coach. If you know ball, you know he's a running coach. And he throws the ball as a result of being able to run the ball, especially power ball. He wants to be able to line up when you know it's coming and you can't stop it. He's done it now against Kentucky, and he's done it against Arkansas. And let's be real about something. There has been a maturity of a head coach on the sideline for Ole Miss this season. The Kentucky game and the Arkansas game, last year's team, I think they would have lost those games. I genuinely do. I don't know that Ole Miss could have survived 2 interceptions against Kentucky on the road. Heck, Kentucky beat Ole Miss last year, but I don't know if Ole Miss is able to pull that game out. Ole Miss was able to go 30-13 in the second, third, and fourth quarters in that game. And against Arkansas, they played an unbelievably clean offensive game. Any mistakes and Arkansas wins it. There was none to be had, no turnovers, no penalties, all of that stuff. It worked out for the Ole Miss Rebels. Now, with the Tulane Green Wave in town, you kind of take the next step because you look at the schedule. Everybody knows what's coming up after this game. Okay. But this game is important in its own right. Tulane is either ranked or receiving votes at this point. Some pollsters are ranking Tulane, and they deserve to be. I genuinely think that when the season is said and done, Tulane's going to be the G5 participant in the college football playoff. But I think Ole Miss just has a little bit too much. I think this is a terrible matchup for Tulane. And because of that, this is the game where Lane Kiffin gets to test out his theory of what he wants to become, how he wants to evolve this offense. The tempo and all that stuff is never going away, but they'll slow it down from time to time now. Have you noticed that? They will play slow and play as the favorite from time to time. They don't want a situation where the other team can run clock because they know that they are talented enough to get first downs regardless. They do not have to rely on the tempo. They are good enough to proceed as it is. So Ole Miss, I think in this game, especially with as leaky as Tulane's run defense has been, again, they gave up nearly 6 yards a carry against Duke, including multiple explosive plays. They gave up nearly 5 yards a carry on the road at South Alabama. Our boy Kentrell Bullock went over 100 yards in that game. I think there's a chance for this offensive line to do a little work. I think there's a chance for Kewan Lacey to have a breakout game. And I think there's a chance with Trinidad Chambliss and Logan Diggs that you see 20-something personnel in the backfield. It could either be 21 or 22. But I think they're going to go with multiple backs from time to time. One back going out for a flare pass and the other one, it's the RPO thing. You can either throw the swing if they're outside or hand the ball off inside. That's one of the go-to plays that you see in the RPO world. And they're going to try and torture linebackers as much as they can. We always used to talk about, heck, it's been 2 or 3 years now. When Lane Kiffin's offense is really working, they torture linebackers. And this power running game is the first step. If they can get that going against Tulane, that is the first step to being able to do that, especially with a really good defense in multiple facets coming up over the next month or so on the schedule. Ole Miss needs to be able to run the football. He needs it to look like it did in 2003 when Norm Chow and Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian were all on the same staff and they were dialing up pressures all over the place to where they were handing the ball off to Reggie Bush or Lindell White or play passing to them and having wide open receivers down the field. It's the left-handedness of Austin Simmons that made me go here. But that is the offense I think Lane Kiffin wants to have happen. We'll see what it looks like. I think Lane can do it. I think Ole Miss can do it. And with Kewan Lacey, you have definitely somebody that has the chops to be able to pull that off. You also have great skill players all over the field. What I liked about the game against Arkansas, and I think this is something hopefully that Lane kind of picked up on as well. What I really liked in that game is that like 9 receivers caught passes. It wasn't a blowout to where you put the backups in. They just spread the ball around. If you were open, you got it. And whenever that happens, this offense becomes so hard to stop. The only hope that defenses have generally against the Ole Miss offense is if they start locking in and forcing balls to one receiver. Whenever that happens, they can lock it up a little bit. But if you can run the ball, use play action pass, and spread the ball around to your receivers and tight ends, the offense becomes unstoppable. There's nothing you can do about it. And it doesn't matter how good of a coach John Sumrall is. It doesn't matter how good of a team Tulane is. You're not stopping that offense if that gets going. The best hope that Tulane has in this game, and it's a real hope, it can happen, is Trinidad Chambliss starts and kind of comes back to earth. Throws a couple of ill-advised interceptions, maybe fumbles the ball, a couple of weirdly timed penalties. Stuff like that will bring the gap and shrink it down. And Tulane can get you then. Tulane is a good team. They are a really good team. I think they have a chance to be the 11-1 college football playoff G5 recipient. They're probably the best G5 team out there. So we'll see what it looks like. I am really excited about where this can go, honestly. All right, coming up in our final segment, this game has trap written all over it. If you look at last week against Arkansas, next week against LSU, and a ranked team at number 11 and number 13 coming in, it kind of gives a chance for Ole Miss to show some consistency and efficiency. We will look at this game, kind of give our picks, and we'll also look at some of the props. We'll break down which ones we like the most and why, coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make a neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar that's packed out on game days, or the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that has been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. One of my personal favorites when I lived at Oxford was Phillips Grocery. They use Square. They just have that feel about them whenever you walk in. And the burger, it was fantastic. These local spots are what makes the neighborhood feel like home. So many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be so happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. And it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more time every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. Let's break it all down. For Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. He was a weapon on the goal line as a runner and a passer en route to 3 total touchdowns against the Arkansas Razorbacks. When the pressure was on, Trinidad came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching, he wants to go on a streak, doesn't he? He was on the podium for the D2 Heisman Trophy, the Harlan Hill Trophy. Trinidad Chambliss wants to go on a streak. And just like Trinidad Chambliss delivered for the Ole Miss Rebels, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday so you can keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. So one of the things I'll be looking for in this game will be how Trinidad Chambliss plays in his second game, going against a defense that's pretty good at scheming some stuff up. John Summerall is very good at what he does. I'll be looking at different players around how they perform, and schematically, how does Ole Miss attack? Do they commit to Trinidad Chambliss if he's the starter on Saturday? Do they make it to where it's just a little bit easier for the run game to work? We know that Ole Miss is primarily 11 personnel. Every single play, they work at so much tempo. That's basically what they have to do. What does it look like if 12 personnel becomes more prevalent? What does it look like when 22 personnel shows up, or 21 personnel? I'm interested in all of that stuff and whether or not Lane Kiffin will do that. Coming into this week, Ole Miss comes in at number 13 in the AP poll. I call that the non-ball knowers poll, plus Michael Katz. And the coaches poll, they're number 11, and that's the assistant SID poll. So Ole Miss is at a point where if they beat Tulane, they'll likely have a top 10 matchup against the LSU Tigers the following week, if you look at where they sit in the poll right now. The players to watch in this game is pretty simple. It's Trinidad Chambliss. All eyes are going to be on him. We saw against Texas A&M, Shea Patterson, what game 2 looked like against Vanderbilt. Can Trinidad Chambliss recreate a little bit of the magic that he had against the Arkansas Razorback? If he can, Ole Miss is going to win this game pretty handily. So we can see what's happening there. Kewan Lacey, we mentioned earlier in the show about Tulane having a leaky run defense where Duke averaged 6 yards per carry. South Alabama averaged 5 yards per carry, even without really explosive plays. Kewan Lacey could be in line to go pretty well this weekend. And Suntarine Perkins, how will they use Suntarine Perkins? Are they going to put him near the line of scrimmage? Are they going to turn him loose on Jake Reztlaff? Are they going to make him scramble out to his left and just force him so he's not rolling out to the right or something like that? That's interesting to me of how that ends up going. Ole Miss is currently favored by 12.5 points. The over-under is at 61.5. And that's been pretty stable all week. It's about 70% of the money and 70% of the bets are on Ole Miss. They're not moving the line. They're a little bit unsure about Trinidad Chambliss and the Ole Miss quarterback situation, but they're not sure enough to move it down, free fall it like they did against Arkansas last week. Now, this game have Ole Miss winning 34-17 over the Tulane Green Wave. It's going to be a situation Ole Miss gets off to a quick start. It's going to look a lot like the Troy game just a couple of years ago. It was John Summerall's first game. Ole Miss is going to come out quick, start fast, and they're going to be able to take that game over. Some other props that I will be looking at in this game, Kewan Lacey north of 150 yards. I'm really interested there. I don't know that Tulane has seen a back of the level of Kewan Lacey and seeing what he can do. I want to see how much Logan Diggs can play. Like John Reztlaff or Jake Reztlaff, his over-under on completed passes is 13. If it's under, Ole Miss is going to win this game going away. If it's over, I mean, it could be interesting. Force Reztlaff to have a career day to make that interesting. Play clean enough to where you don't make mistakes to give up easy scoring opportunities for the Tulane Green Wave. They're 7 for 7 on field goals. Their special teams are really good. This is a really well-coached football team. This is going to be a tough test. This isn't Georgia State coming in. Heck, this isn't Kentucky. This isn't Arkansas. This is a really good, really well-coached football team that is going to be ready to play on Saturday. But I think Ole Miss takes care of business just off of the superior athletes that they have. Ole Miss needs to be careful not to have coverage bust and stuff like that. They need to play a clean game, though. So we will see how it goes. Thank you for making Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports, Locked On Ole Miss, I should say. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe me, search Ole Miss Podcast on Google and see how much we come up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is totally free. Your support means the world to us. In another big moment for Locked On, a show that I am on this week, if you have an Amazon Fire TV, college football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Tall of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation, two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, and former college star Jesse Holley and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.